Sattar Malia. I am MBA secondary student. So may I know your name
My name is Nisha Sharma.
and what is your age?
My age is 25.
Okay, I am going to check your eyes and ear.
Okay.
Number 1. Visual acuity. To test the acuity of the central vision, use a snail eye chart. Position the patient 20 feet from the chart. Patient who wear glasses other than for reading should put them on. Ask the patient to cover one eye with a card to prevent looking through the fingers and to read the smallest line of the print possible. Attempting the next line may improve performance. A patient who cannot read the largest letter should be positioned closer to the chart. Note the intervening distance. Identify the smallest line of the print where the patient can identify more than half the letters. Record the visual acuity. Visual acuity is expressed as two numbers. The first indicates the distance of the patient from the chart, and the second the distance at which a normal eye can read. Number 2. Visual field static wiggle test. Position yourself about an arm's length away from the patient. Close one eye and have the patient cover the opposite eye while staring at your open eye. Place your hands about 2 feet apart out of the patient's ear. Wiggle your fingers and slowly bring your moving fingers forward into the patient's center of view. Ask patient to tell you as soon as he or she see your fingers movement. Test each quadrant, test each eyes individually, and record the extent of visit in each area. Not any abnormal field cut conjunctiva in sclera. Ask the patient to look up as you depress both lower lids with your thumbs, exposing the sclera and conjunctiva. Inspect the sclera and palpable conjunctiva for color. Note the visual pattern against the white sclera background. Look for any nodule swelling or redness. Pupils size in the dim light. Inspect the size, shape and symmetry of both the pupils. Measure the pupils with the cards showing black circles of varying sizes. Note if the pupils are larger than 5 mm or smaller than 3 mm or unequal light reaction in the dim light. Test the pupillary reaction to the light. Ask the patient to look into the distance and shine a bright light obliquely into each pupil. Turnwise turn both the distance gauge and oblique lighting. Help to prevent a near reaction. Look for two things. One, the direct reaction, which is palpebral constriction in the same eye. Second, an consensual reaction, which is the pupillary constriction in the opposite eye. Next, near reaction. If the reaction to light is impaired, test the near reaction in both dim and normal light. Testing one eye at a time makes it easier to concentrate on the pupillary responses. Hold your pencil at about 10 cm from the patient's eye. Ask the patient to look alternately at it and into the distance directly behind it. Watch for pupillary constriction with near efforts and convergence of the eyes. Extraocular movements. Ask the patient to follow your finger or pencil as you swipe through the 6 cardinal direction of gaze, making a white edge in the air. Lead the patient's gaze number 1 to patient's extreme right, them to the right and upward and down to the right, then without passing it the middle to extreme left to the left and upward and down on the left. Pause during upward and lateral gaze to detect nystagmus. Move your fingers as pencil at comfortable distance from the patient. Convergence. Ask the patient to follow your finger or pencil as you move it in towards the bridge of the nose. The converging eyes normally follow the object to within 5 cm to 8 cm of the nose. Ophthalmoscopy. Due to unavailability in the pandemic, I am using as another object to demonstrate. Using your fundoscope, locate the optic disc, bring it into sharp focus and then examine it. Note of any sharpness, clarity, color, and size of the disc. Usually it's yellowish orange to creamy pink. Ear examination. Inspect the auricle. Inspect the auricle and surrounding tissue for deformities, lumps, or skin lesions. Otoscopy. Due to unavailability, I am using another device to demonstrate to see the ear canal and drum. Use an otoscope with the largest ear speculum that insert easily into the canal. Inspect the ear canal, noting any discharge, foreign bodies, redness of the skin, or swelling. Inspect the eardrum, noting its color. Whisper test. Stand 2 feet behind the seated patient so that the patient cannot read your lips. Occlude the non-testing hair with the finger and gently rub the tragus in a circular motion to prevent transfer of the sound to the non-testing ear. Exhale a full deep breath before whispering to ensure a quiet and sound voice. Whisper a combination of three numbers or letters such as 29 Y 53. Use a different letters numbers combination for the other ear. Interpreting the normal patient will repeat initial sequence correctly or the patient responds incorrectly, so test it a second time with the different letter number combination. Abnormal 4 of the 6 possible letters and the numbers are incorrect. Weber test. Place the base of the lightly vibrating tuning fork firmly on the top of the patient's head or on the mid of the forehead. Ask whether the patient hears the sound on one side or on both sides. Normally the vibrating is heard in midline or equally in both ears. If nothing is heard, try again, pressing the fork more firmly on the head. In unilateral sensory hearing loss, sound is heard in the good ear. Remember, sensory neural hearing loss, which is unilateral sound, is heard in the good ear. Rene test. Compare air conduction with the bone conduction. Place the base of the lightly vibrating tuning fork on the mastoid bone behind the ear level with the canal. Ask if the patient hear the vibration. Normally the sound is heard longer through the air conduction than through the bone conduction. In the conductive hearing loss, sound is heard through the bone longer than through the air. However, in the sensory neural hearing loss, sound is heard longer through the air.